Hey guys, welcome to question MM338 of the Maths Methods Fortify study guide. Now, this one says, Ben has been saving money for years and has decided to switch up his savings plan. His new plan means that the rate of increase of his savings account is given by dsdt equals e to the power of t take 10 over 5 over 50, where t is greater than or equal to 0, and where s is the balance in his savings account in thousands t months after starting his new savings plan. So that is when S equals 1, he has $1,000 in his savings account. So it's all in thousands. So part A, which is a 1 mark question, says, how fast is Ben's savings account growing 20 months after he starts this savings plan, correct to the nearest dollar? All right, awesome. So we know that dsdt is the rate of increase of his savings account. So this is literally just what we need to use. So we know that t is equal to 20, right? Because we're dealing with the months afterwards. So ds dt is equal to e to the power of 20 minus 10 over 5 over 50. Cool. 20 minus 10 is 10. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So e squared over 50, which is equal to 0.1478. And because this is all in thousands, his savings account is growing at $148 per month. And this is our first and only mark for this question. Guys, that's it for part A. Let's move on to part B. Part B is a 2 mark question and says, what is the average rate of growth of Ben's savings account between t equals 0 and t equals 20? Give your answer correct to the nearest dollar. Awesome. So the average rate of growth is the same as the average value of this growth, right? And to figure out average value, we use our average value formula, funnily enough. So our average value formula is 1 over b minus a from a to b of f of x dx. This is just our general formula. And we're looking for between t equals 20 and t equals 0, right? So our lower is 0 and our upper is 20, which means here we have 20 minus 0. Awesome. Now from here, we know that we've got our function here, which is e to the power of t minus 10 over 5 over 50 dt. Awesome. Now, 1 over 20 minus 0 is just 1 over 20, and then we're multiplying that by this integral here. E to the power of t take 10 over 5 over 50, the integral of that is e to the power of t take 10 over 5 over 10 from 0 to 20. Now, this is your first mark right here. You can do that on your CAS and just plug it in there because you do have access to your calculator right now. So, from here, we can then say 1 over 20, and then we need to sub our 20 and our 0 in, and we get e to the power of 20 minus 10 over 5 over 10 minus e to the power of 0 minus 10 over 5 over 10. Then from here, we can simply say 1 over 20 times e squared on 10 minus e to the negative 2 on 10. And what we're going to get is 0.036, which means to the nearest dollar, we're growing at $36 per month. And that is our average growth, okay? That's our second mark, and our final mark for part B. That was part B, my bad. That was 2 marks. Guys, that's it for that. Let's move on to part C. Part CI is a 2 mark question. And it says, when Ben starts this new savings plan, he already has $20,000 saved. Find an expression for S, Ben's total savings balance, t months after he starts this new savings plan. Awesome. So we know that the rate of change of his savings plan or his savings account is this, which means to find our value of S, which is our total savings, we need to integrate this, right? Because this is the derivative of S, so S would be the integral of that. So S is equal to integral of e to the t take 10 on 5 over 50 dt, which is equal to, as we found in the previous question, e to the power of t take 10 over 5 over 10 plus c, okay? Awesome. Now, when Ben starts a new savings plan, he already has $20,000 saved, which means that our S value is going to be 20, right? Because remember, we're dealing with thousands here. So when the savings is 20,000, S equals 10, okay? So he starts with 20,000, which means at t equals 0, he has 20,000. Plus c there. Then we can just rearrange this, and what happens is we get 20 equals e to the power of -2 over 10 plus c. So therefore c equals 20 minus 1 over 10e squared. So I've just made that positive and made it on the bottom. This is our first mark up here, actually, by the way. And then our second mark comes from stating the final formula. So s is equal to e to the power of t minus 10 over 5 over 10. And then plus c, which is plus 20 minus 1 over 10 e squared. That's our second and final mark for this part. And that's it. So let's move on to CII. CII is quite straightforward. And it says, how much money will Ben have 30 months after 30 months of this savings plan? So the way we figure that out is we know that the total savings is given by s equals e to the t take 10 over 5 over 10 plus 20 minus 1 over 10 e squared. And we're looking for s of 30, right? We're looking for the savings 30 months after he starts. So e to the power of 30 minus 10 over 5 over 10 plus 20, take 1 over 10 e squared. Now this is only a 1 mark question, so we don't have to show any working. I'm just showing this so that you can see what's happening. So we get 25.44628, which means that our total savings is $25,446.28. Now that's our first and only mark for this question, guys. That's it. Let's move on to part D. Now part D says that Ben wants to renovate his house, build a pool, and landscape his back garden. So he's got a few projects that he wants to get underway. He's going to need some money for this. So it says Ben wants to renovate. The project is going to cost $40,000. All right. How many months must he save for on this new plan in order to be able to afford this? Give your answer correct to 1 decimal place. Cool. So part D, 2 mark question, guys. So we know that again, the savings is given by s equals e to the t take 10. Sorry, I should have just kept this. Plus 20 minus 1 over 10 e squared. Awesome. And we know that he's looking for $40,000, right? So 40 is equal to e to the power of t take 10 over 5 over 10 plus 20 minus 1 over 10 e squared. Awesome. Now, solving this, we can actually do this pretty much by hand until the last step when we have to chuck it in the calculator. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 20 and 1 on 10 e squared to the other side. So 40 minus 20 is 20. And then we're going to add that to this side. 1 over 10 e squared equals e to the t take 10 over 5 over 10. And then what we're going to do is simply multiply both sides by 10. So we get 200 plus 1 on e squared, which equals e to the t take 10 over 5. And then we can take the log of both sides. So we get log e of 200 plus 1 over e squared, which equals t take 10 over 5. And then rearranging this, we get t equals 5 log e 200 plus 1 on e squared plus 10. Awesome. Now, our first mark actually comes somewhere around here, like in between these 2 steps here. And then we need to chuck this into our calculator. And what we're going to get is t equals 36.5 months. And that's our second and final mark for part D. Guys, just keep in mind that 1 decimal place. Like the question clearly says you need to do it correct 1 decimal place. So just make sure that you do that. Guys, that's it for part D. Let's move on to part E. Part E is a 1 mark question. We're moving away from the savings plan. We're going into some area stuff. So Ben has just received the plan for his new pool from the landscaping company. The shaded area below, which is the area bound by f of x equals x outside of 5 take x, and g of x equals log e of 5 take x, and the x-axis represents a bird's eye view of the pool. All dimensions are given in meters. Cool, so part E asks, find the coordinates of point A, the point of intersection between y equals f of x and y equals g of x, corrected 2 decimal places. Awesome. So, as always with points of intersection, what we're going to want to do is let them equal each other, right? Let these two functions equal each other. So we get f of x equals g of x, which means that we get x outside of 5 take x equals log e of 5 take x. Now, whenever you've got an x inside a log and outside, you're going to need to use your calculator to solve this. So solving CAS, and we get x equals 0.33. Awesome. But we're not done yet because we actually need to find the coordinates of point A, right? So we've got our x value, but now we need our y value. So what we can then do is say f of 0.33 to find our y value is 0.33 times 5 minus 0.33. And what that gives us is 1.54. So therefore, A occurs at 0.33, 1.54. That is our first mark, and only mark for part E. Guys, that's it for that one. Let's move on to part F. Part F is a 2-mark question and says, find the coordinates of point B and C. Sweet. So we can see that B and C are on our x-axis. One is the x-intercept of g of x, and one is our x-intercept of f of x. Okay, so let's start with point B and say that our x-intercept occurs when g of x equals 0. Okay, so therefore 0 is equal to log e of 5 take x. Rearranging this, we can get e to the power of 0 equals 5 minus x. E to the power of 0 is 1, so 1 equals 5 take x. Whoops, 5 take x. So then therefore x equals 4. So B occurs at 4, 0. Right, so this is 4 here. Awesome. Now we can say that C occurs when f of x equals 0, right? Because it's our x-intercept of f of x, which means that 0 equals x outside of 5 take x. So therefore x equals 0 and x equals 5. But because this is clearly not x equals 0, C occurs at x equals 5. So therefore C occurs at 5, 0. So our first mark comes when we find B, our second mark comes when we find C. That's it. So that's it for part F. My bad again, 2 marks. So let's move on to part G. Part G is a 2-mark question and says, how much area does the pool take up in the backyard? Give your answer correct to the nearest square meter. Awesome. So we've got G here, which is a 2-mark question. And we need to find the area of this shaded region, all right? So the biggest thing to remember here and to recognize is that we're not going to be able to do this in one step or one integral, okay, or one area, because we've got this section here where f of x is above g of x from a to b, but then f of x is above the x-axis from b to c, okay? So we've actually got 2 separate areas here. So whenever we've got that, we need to separate these into 2 sections, essentially. So what we're going to do is say that this is our first area, A1, and this is our second area, A2, okay? So whenever you can cut an area with a vertical line, that's when we need to actually do that. So our total area, AT, is equal to A1 plus A2, funnily enough. Now, A1 is the area between f of x and g of x from a to b, okay? So from a to b, f of x is our top function, so we say f of x minus our bottom function, which is g of x, right? That gives us the area between those 2 graphs. And then we plus the integral from b to c of area 2, which is f of x to the x-axis, right? Which we can just find the area under f of x. So f of x is all we need to put here. So then what we get is we can just sub in numbers and equations now. So A occurs at 0.33, as we found before. B occurs at 4, which is what we found before as well. F of x is x 5 take x minus g of x, which is log e of 5 take x dx, plus from B, which is 4, to C, which is 5, of f of x, which again is x 5 take x dx. Fantastic. Now from here, we can actually just evaluate these. So what we end up getting is 5x squared over 2 minus x cubed over 3 minus x take 5 log e of 5 take x plus x, and you can use a calculator for this, remember. 4 from 0.33 to 4, and then we do plus 5x squared over 2 take x cubed over 3 from 4 to 5. Now in between here is our first mark, that gives us that, and then our second mark comes for the answer, right? So our area total, from this we get 17.046 meters squared, but the question asks us to give our answer correct to the nearest square meter, and our nearest square meter is 17. So that means that our area is 17 meters squared. This is our second and final mark for our final answer for part G, but also for MM338. So that wraps up 338, guys. If you have any questions, as always, hit me up in the comments below. But otherwise, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.